Hello everyone, my guest today is Nik Bonaddio. He's the founder and CEO of the public sports analytics site NumberFire, which was acquired by FanDuel in September of 2015. Today, Nik is a chief product officer at FanDuel. Nik founded his company NumberFire in 2009 after he won $1,000 on the show Who Wants to Be a Millionaire with Regis Philbin during the 10th anniversary season of the show. Since its funding, NumberFire has grown to over 600,000 subscribers and has gained recognition in the marketplace for accurate predictions, including correctly predicting winners of the Super Bowl and the NCAA Men's Division Basketball Championship. Nik has been featured in various publications and conferences. In addition to routinely contributing to ESPN, he has been featured in Sports Illustrated in 2011, Fast Company in 2012, and Entrepreneur Magazine, amongst others, in 2013. So first of all, Nik, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Thomas.
It's a pleasure to have you on here today. So Nik, you go on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and had a successful run and basically walked away with $100,000. So you started your business after that. Was that a plan, all the way? So you planned that, or was it kind of like, you have the money and you have to do something with it?
Yeah, I mean, that was generally my plan. For the business I started with NumberFire, I knew I had, probably about a year's work to do on my own before I could actually release the product I was working on. And so I kind of figured if I wanted to work for myself for a year, I would probably need, here in New York City, it's expensive to live here, I would probably need a pretty good amount. And so, when I'm on the show, I probably could have guessed the next question, but I decided to walk away once I'd gotten the amount of money I thought that I needed. And yeah, I know it was a great experience to be on the show. And I basically quit my job the next day and started my company. And so, it's kind of a unique story relative towards, most people, raise financing or they get money from their family or whatever. I happen to go on a game show, but it really worked out, and it's a fun story to tell.
That's amazing. Yeah, I love that story. So when you quit your job and you started a company, how was that going? Like you just started, or what were you struggling with?
It was stressful because, I think a lot of people in my family thought it was kind of crazy because, my family wanted me to, come home and buy a house and, start a family and all that. But, the idea for NumberFire was an idea I've had my entire life. And it was one of those things where I couldn't stop thinking about it. And it was just sort of like a dream project to work on. And, this was the first time I actually had the ability to go in, and really do it. When you're building out a data platform and analytics platform like NumberFire was, it takes a lot of upfront investment. I had to spend many months collecting data, building out models, doing all of the things to, get the company off the ground. Some companies in the really early stages are like really, really simple prototypes, but, to get a company that's a data company off the ground, I had to do a lot of work up front. And, I loved it. So it wasn't a big deal for me to do that work. I really did enjoy it. But what was stressful about it is, I knew that, what I wanted to get out of it, but, you never know if, other people are going to find, what you built to be useful for them. And so, I kind of had to just guess and, look at the market and kind of use my intuition. But yeah, the most stressful thing part of it was just not knowing how other people would react to the things that I built.
Yeah, I loved it. What were some of the resources that have helped you, when you first started out? Because you quit your job and then you started, what were the resources that helped you?
Yeah, it's funny, the number one thing is more than anything else, this is going to sound kind of silly when I say it, but, just having friends and family that believe in you, because there's always going to be times in which you're feeling kind of bummed or you're feeling just sort of run down because you're working so much. Having friends that will, take you out for a beer or, just sort of help you blow off some steam, that in and of itself is helpful. And so, one piece of advice I'd give to entrepreneurs is don't ignore your network. And I don't mean network just in a sense of a professional network. I mean, you have to have people who are, just your friends that will help you sort of, maintain a a good mindset to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
Beyond that, because I'm here in New York City, there are a lot of people within the startup community, and one thing I've found is of people who have, been around the community a while, and maybe there's people who've sold companies and this or that, a lot of people do really enjoy giving back. And, so I try to do that now. I mean, like now that I'm many years past, founding and selling NumberFire, I try to give back because I remember what it was like to be in those early stages. And so, I did find a lot of people who were willing to give me advice and, help me make introductions to investors and things like that. So, really the most important thing was just, knowing where to ask for help and, being willing to ask for help as well. And, just the niceness of people who want to give back to the community.
Yeah, I totally agree that people are, super, super important. So who are the 3 people that have been most influential to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. As far as sort of like, influential to, my business and sort of like, where it came, the first one leaps to mind is a guy named Nate Silver. So Nate Silver is a statistician that basically, what he does in politics was very similar to what I was trying to do with sports and NumberFire. Just, how can we use data? How can we use advanced modeling to turn something that most people think is just sort of, an art into something like a science? And so a lot of the work that he was doing kind of proved the market for what I wanted to do. Certainly here in the New York tech scene, there's a couple investors, Dave Tisch comes to mind, who are just really, really great investors, but really great people too. Guys you can always lean on for help or advice, or always willing to make introductions, or always willing to be super helpful. So I was lucky to have a lot of really good investors, backing me early on. And then, like just generally within sports, and I don't know if I can speak to a single person that I can point to, but, over the past decade or so in sports, the way that people discuss the game and the way that people make decisions in the game has changed so much. Back in the day, it was about scouting and it was about sort of getting these experts, these qualitative experts, and, they'd be able to look at a match and, use their expertise. But now that we've got, a lot of data-driven companies that are out there who are not using the eye test, they're not using qualitative analysis, they're using data. And it's turned a lot of, sporting clubs kind of into tech companies. And so, I've certainly, that happening out in the marketplace certainly made, my company a lot easier relative towards, just kind of finding an audience for what we were doing.
Yeah, got it. No, I love that. Was there a unique skill or kind of like a connection of skills or a set of skill set that helped you along the way and basically, make that first company successful?
Yeah. Like I think, if you're starting a company, I mean, you have to really love it. Like that has to be like the thing you're obsessed about.
Like your baby.
Yeah, like it has to be like just like you think about it all day, every day. You think about it in the shower. You think about it when you wake up. Like that's just your thing. And when I was starting the company, there wasn't a lot of people who were simultaneously interested in sports as well as data. Like those two worlds didn't really cross over all that much. And so like the fact that I was trying to find this intersection between sports and data, really sort of helped me as sort of like being someone who was thinking about the industry in a slightly different way. And that just combined with the fact that, my background's in computer science. And so, I had the ability to not only have an idea, but to go build it myself versus having to go and find a co-founder or go and find a tech shop to help me build it. I was able to kind of just kind of hole up in my apartment for a year and just sort of, just code away. And it was stressful, but like, those are some of my most fun memories too.
Yeah. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you think that people and making the right connections, knowing the right people, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much influence that you as a person and your company becoming, successful and really, successful, basically?
Yeah, you know what? I would say probably I'd give that like a 5. I don't discount networking. Like that's super important. And I think obviously, if you get your stuff in front of the right person, it could change everything. But the way I see it is, if your product's good enough, like the right people will find it on their own. And so, I would spend less time focusing on the networking aspect of it and more time focusing on like, how can I build my best product? Because, what happened in my case is, I launched my product, and the first 1,000 users of your product are going to be the people who are the influencers, right? They're going to be the people who are, who like startups, who follow it, and they're more likely going to be the people who are going to go out and tell other people about what you're doing. And so if you focus on building a great product, especially in the early stages, all of those users are going to be the ones kind of doing the networking for you, such that you don't have to go out and and talk to 100 people. The users who love your product will be the ones going out and talking about your product. And so, I would say a 5. And part of that's also just kind of who I am. I'm on the shy side. I'm an introvert. I don't really enjoy going to conferences and stuff like that. So, what I always wanted to do was build a product that people loved, and under the idea that if they love my product, they'll be the ones sort of talking to their friends and talking to people about what I'm doing.
Yeah. Do you have any routines, or did you have any routines back then, like that you strictly followed every single day, also now?
Not really. I mean, I'm not a big so I'm a pretty sort of unstructured guy as far as that stuff goes. So I think certainly as I was building out, things, I would have, deadlines I'd set for myself and things like that. Because what's unique about sports is, the sports seasons start when they start. And so if I want to launch something for the start of, let's say, the basketball season or the football season, I have to get it done by a certain date. But other than that, I think, I tend to keep things pretty fluid, I guess. I'm not a big structure guy. And what's funny about my current job here at FanDuel is FanDuel is a much larger company than NumberFire ever was. And so certainly
how many employees did you have with NumberFire?
So when I sold NumberFire, we sold it with 15 employees, I think. And FanDuel's probably up to 1,000, 1,100, 1,200 people. And so, it's a much larger organization, which is fine. I like a lot of the stability and a lot of the things that come with a larger company, but certainly, shifting over from a very early stage startup to a much more established company, adds on a lot more structure. Now you've got more, check-ins with your team. You've got more, it's a little more structured than it was, for sure.
Yeah, got it. Is there currently a CEO, founder, or executive that you're following or studying?
That's a good question. Yeah, I mean, there are a couple companies I think are doing some really cool stuff that, that aren't necessarily related to sports that I'm paying attention to. I think Square does a lot of really cool things. Here in the States, there's a company called Peloton, which just went public, which I think is doing some really cool stuff. I don't necessarily follow individual CEOs so much as I follow what companies are doing. And so it's probably more, I can't name a single one that's kind of who I zoom into. But definitely, I read a ton of Hacker News. I read a ton of, TechCrunch, just to kind of see what's going on and, maintain a connection to the, what's going on at the earlier stages.
Yeah. So do you go kind of like after the company? So you say, you know, you have a company, and then, you know, the company is doing really well, like having amazing success, and then you look to this at the CEO, or do you look at the CEO and then basically like the CEO as a person, and then kind of like look at a company behind it?
Yeah, it's probably more the former. Like I think, you know, I tend to think that like companies make the CEO more than the CEO makes the company, I would say. And I know that's sort of like weird for like someone who was a founder to say, but you know, one thing that I always thought was important, you know, was that I always want to hire people who are smarter than me. Like I
Yeah.
always want to find people who are smarter, better, you know, better coders, you know, just and so, you know, when you look at a company that's really, really performing well, you know, obviously the CEO has a lot to do with like setting the culture and the vision and this or that, but it's really like, you know, everyone who works there who's like really, really, you know, like working together and building out a great product. And so, you know, so it's not so much that like an individual CEO to me like is like worth following so much as like, you know, let's look at an interesting company. Let's see some of the things they're doing because, you know, you can just tell that throughout that entire company, there's hundreds of engineers and designers that are just doing really cool things. And to me, that's a little more interesting to follow.
Yeah, got it. So, I mean, you know, you have sold your company out, and you have an amazing job as the CPO at FanDuel. So what drives you right now? What's currently driving you?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, I'm always interested in kind of what's next. Like, I think I'm naturally a product person. So, like, I'm always thinking about, you know, how we make our current product better, what kind of new features can we build, you know, where is the overall industry going, and, like, how can we make sure that we're in a good spot for that. And so, you know, running the product team for a large company isn't all that different than running a small startup. I mean, you still want to be innovative. You still want to, you know, get the best out of your team. You still want to make sure that you're on the cutting edge of things. And so, you know, my day-to-day isn't really all that different. It's just, you know, it's just done at a larger scale. And so, you know, I still wake up excited about what kind of opportunities are out there. And, you know, now just the outcomes are bigger because we're talking about a much larger company.
Yeah, got it. So what's next for you? I just to wrap this up here. So are you gonna stay in the company, gonna start a new venture, or
Yeah,
what do
I
you want to
mean,
do?
you know, I think anyone who is an entrepreneur, like that's just kind of who they are as a person. I mean, even going back when I was a kid, you know, I was you know, the kid selling baseball cards and running
Oh,
lemonade
love
stand.
it.
Yeah, and like that was me, right? And
Like a
so
small Gary V.
yeah, no, I mean, like that's exactly. I mean, like you know, if you're an entrepreneur, that's just kind of who you are, right?
Yeah,
And so I definitely think at some point I'm going to start another company because you know I've got way too many ideas. But you know, I think you know what's been great about FanDuel's acquisition of NumberFire was that you know so much of the things that we built are integrated into FanDuel's overall code base that you know the mission stayed pretty much the same. And so it wasn't like you know like NumberFire still exists. We're still building features for it. And so you know to me like the original thesis and the original idea of what I started back in the day, like still kind of exists. So to me, it's still fun to be here and there's still great things to build. But, you know, I'm sure that at some points, you know, I'll get that urge again and I'll have an idea that I get obsessed about. And then, you know, I'm sure it's going to happen all over again.
got it. Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for being on the show, Nick. I really appreciate it. And yeah, wish you a great day.
Thank you so much, Thomas. Have a good one.